My name's Andrew White. I direct the Center for New York City Affairs, which is a policy center think tank that's part of the Milano School of International Affairs, Management, and Urban Policy. And the center essentially does research rooted in journalism and data analysis and much more that looks at issues like child welfare, immigrant communities, and public education. And last year, we brought Insideschools in-house to the center and to the new school. It was a big step for us. Clara had been working with us for a couple of years on other projects, and it was a great opportunity to meld the policy work that we do and the journalism that we do on that side of the shop with the service journalism and the sort of provision of information that you can't get anywhere else about the city's public schools through the Insideschools website. So before we get going, I wanted to thank a few people. First off, I want to thank City Council Speaker Chris Quinn for co-sponsoring this evening's event. I want to thank the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation for making it possible for us to bring Insideschools to the new school and to run it for the first couple of years that it's here. The Belvedere Trust and the David L. Klein Foundation, the Milano Foundation, and the Cyrus Fund. That said, none of that is enough to pay all the costs for the kind of work we do on this website, so we depend on the donations of readers, satisfied readers and users of the site, just so you know. My role really tonight is just to kick things off and introduce Jackie Wayans, who is the assignment editor extraordinaire and one of the founders of Insideschools. Jackie is a parent of 3. 2 are in high school now. 1 is a successful graduate of the city's high school. And she does workshops around the city, as do the others on the staff of Insideschools. But most of all, she helps keep this operation together, even making sure all of you got in here tonight. So, Jackie, where are you?
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. It is my great pleasure to have this event. This is Insideschools' very first citywide workshop, and we are very happy that you are here. And I would like to know exactly who I'm speaking to, so I'm going to ask for a little shout-out action before we start things off. Do we have anyone here from Staten Island by chance? No? Okay. How about Queens? Here. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And the Bronx. Wonderful. Thank you for making the trek. Brooklyn. All right. Wow, look at that. And Manhattan, of course. Yes, all right. Okay, wonderful. Well, it's really good to have you, and we're going to have this wonderful buzz session towards the end. I will come back and give you more information. Between 8 and 9, we will have some Q&A one-on-one style to kind of answer your questions. But I came across Insideschools a lot like most of you. A mother of a very young daughter who was ready to go into elementary school, who I thought was brilliant, and I wanted the very best for her. The only problem was that I lived in the poorest economic quadrant of the Bronx, and my neighborhood school was beyond failing and dangerous at the same time. And so I did what any mother would do once I found that out, and I cried. And thankfully, us moms stick together, and I had a dear friend that told me about talented and gifted schools that your child can apply and get an automatic waiver, and I thought, great, but I didn't know anything about this school, and so I came across a book from another friend called New York City's Best Public Elementary School. Anybody heard of that book? So I read that book, and it made me feel so comfortable and so at home with the school. It gave me this inside snapshot of what it would be like for my daughter to go there. Little did I know that a few months later, my children would share the same playground with Clara Hemphill. So I'm very happy to introduce to you the founder and the brain of Insideschools, Clara Hemphill.
I can't talk and do the computer at the same time, so we're going to be a tag team as we've been for 10 years now. How many of you are looking for kindergarten for this coming fall? And how many of you are looking for a year from now? And some of you are looking for 2 years from now? Oh my, well, I can't tell you what things are going to be like in 2 years, but I'll do my best. It's a really exciting time for both your kids and for you. I still remember when my kids went off to big kids school and how very proud they were. I mean, it's also a very scary time for parents, and I think it's because this is the first time that the child goes out and is really not under your supervision and direction. Somebody else is in charge of his day. Nursery school, you're really allowed to be around, expected to be around a lot, but in kindergarten, it really does feel like big kids school. And I think a lot of us have this, what my husband calls stream of consciousness worrying, that if I get him in the wrong kindergarten, he's going to go to the wrong high school, and he's going to go to the wrong college, and he's going to get up in jail, and everything is going to fall apart if I don't find the right kindergarten. So we're here to try to help you relax. There are a lot of really lovely kindergartens out there, and we'll help you find one for your child. And we're going to tell you about the different kinds of schools available to you. But first, we're going to look at a video that my colleague Lydie Rashka narrated about what to look for in a school. It's 4 minutes.
It's a good idea to visit a school before you enroll your child. Here are some tips of things to look for. Arrive early. Is the security guard friendly? Does someone greet kids at the door? Are there signs of parent engagement? Family involvement can make a school stronger. You want a school that's welcoming. Is there a place for visitors to sit in the office or in the hallway? Look around at the walls. Is there a lot of artwork? And is it carefully and thoughtfully done? Are there projects on display? How about the quality of the writing? Do children seem to have a choice about the topic? Do teachers help kids make their writing better? Play is important for social skills. When children tell stories, it can lead to good writing. Is there a time for play in kindergarten? Blocks are a foundation for math and physics. These are things you may want to look out for. Are there signs of respect between kids and adults? Does the teacher ask kids what they think? Is she supportive of their ideas? Most of all, do children seem engaged? And don't overlook the main office. A school's leadership is so important. Does the principal seem to get along with her teachers? Does she know her students' names? A principal sets the tone for the whole school, and it should be evident in every classroom. What are kids reading? Look for rich classroom libraries and fun-to-read books. Do teachers read with individuals? How about small groups? Children learn in different ways. Some are good listeners, while others learn best by being actively involved. It's important to have a variety of tools kids can see and touch, particularly in math and science. Faster learners need to be challenged, while some kids need extra help. The point is that all students' needs are met in a good school. Children should move smoothly from one activity to the next without a lot of wasted time, though they ought to be able to sign out and go to the bathroom when they need to. Consider the classroom environment. Is it neat and tidy, or is it chock full and kind of messy? Learning to read and write is a complex process with many methods. For young children, invented spelling, where kids sound out words, makes sense. It helps them to get their ideas out. But by 2nd and 3rd grade, you should see increasing evidence of good spelling, punctuation, and grammar. On the creative side, you want to see a child's individuality. Watch out for too much cookie-cutter artwork. A well-managed classroom gives everyone an opportunity to learn. Class size and attendance are also critical. Small class size is great, but sometimes small numbers are a sign of absenteeism, which affects everyone. Count heads in the classrooms you visit and ask about attendance. Teachers may have to slow the rate of instruction to help kids with poor attendance catch up. Once in a while, you may see a child with her head on the desk or sitting off to one side as a punishment. That's pretty typical. But if you see it in most classrooms, be sure to ask teachers how they handle discipline. And look out for lots of behavior charts. In effective schools, teachers provide a balance of structure and freedom that allows children to become independent. If behavior systems become too complicated, it may detract from the learning. Recess is a time for play. Even on cold winter days, there should be games or a chance to exercise. You don't want to see kids watching cartoons in the lunchroom or auditorium every day. Your child's school should feel right for you and your child. You should both feel comfortable with the environment, the philosophy, and the people. Trust your instincts. For Inside Schools, this is Lighty Rashka.
So that was narrated by Lighty, and who's here in the front row, and produced by Melanie O'Keefe, who both of whom are here to answer your questions afterward. Now I'm going to tell you about some of the different kinds of schools. You can apply to as many schools as you like, your zoned neighborhood school or another neighborhood school that might have space, or a special program like a dual language program or a charter school. One thing I want to make absolutely clear is that your child is entitled to a seat in kindergarten the year he turns 5. You're not required to send your child to school until he's 6, but he's entitled to go to kindergarten if you choose to send him. Sometimes schools will tell you, oh, kindergarten is not, it's not mandatory, we don't have any room, go away. They can't do that. You're not required to send your child, but they must find you a seat. If you wait too long, if you wait till the very last minute in August, your neighborhood school might be full up. And in that case, they'll send you to another school. But in any case, your child's entitled to a seat, even if you arrive in the middle of the year from another country. I'm not going to talk about pre-kindergarten tonight, although when I see how many young people with young children there are, it makes me want to schedule another pre-kindergarten session. Pre-kindergarten is not an entitlement. That means pre-kindergarten is for children who turn 4, either are 4 or about to turn 4 before December 31st. And they're not, some schools have them, some schools don't. You're not entitled to a pre-kindergarten class. But we'll talk about that afterwards in the Q&A session for those of you who are particularly interested in pre-kindergarten. So the first kind of school I want to talk about is your zoned neighborhood school. Most kids in the city go to their zoned neighborhood schools, and I'm a big fan of neighborhood schools. There's some real advantages to it. It's close to home. One of the things that makes a good school is a good sense of community, and it's a lot easier to build a sense of community if the parents can drop by at a moment's notice, if it's easy to get to PTA meetings, if you can't pick your child up from school, there's a neighbor who can do it easily. The other thing is kids get really tired. I mean, my daughter used to fall asleep on my shoulder when I brought her home from kindergarten. A 6-hour day is long for a 5-year-old, and if you're adding on some commuting time, that can make a really long, tiring day. So if you're considering a good school, which is your neighborhood school, or a great school that's miles away, I would probably pick the good school that's the neighborhood school. The tours are going on now. There are tours at a lot of schools in January. Not all schools offer them, however. So one of the things you can do if they don't offer a tour is to go to a PTA meeting, and that's a good way to find out what's going on in the school. No school is perfect, public, private, suburban, urban. So what you have to decide is what you can put up with and what you can fix and what you're just going to, what is really intolerable. My kids' school only had PE once a week. I thought that was ridiculous, but they joined the West Side Soccer League, which is free, parent cooperative, and they got plenty of exercise on weekends that way. If the class size is big, sometimes parents will volunteer in the classroom on a regular basis, or they'll volunteer to go on class trips. Those are the kinds of things parents can help with. But there are other things that are harder to fix. If there's a principal who's really hostile to parents, which does happen from time to time, or really has a mean streak, which happens from time to time, that's the kind of thing which is very hard to fix. Most neighborhood schools do have room for all the kids who are zoned for them. There are pockets of overcrowding. This neighborhood, PS 41, is one of the very popular schools that turns away kids who are actually zoned for it. PS 234 downtown is another one that has not had room for all the kids in the zone. There's also neighborhoods in those Queens parents, Elmhurst and Maspeth are very overcrowded. And District 20 parents, Sunset Park and Bay Ridge, those neighborhoods are also very overcrowded. But most of the schools do have room for their kids. There was a lot of problems last year. You probably read about it in the newspaper, and a lot of parents were really angry about the wait lists. The good news is that a number of new schools have opened since then, and the other schools have been rezoned so that the crowding has really eased quite significantly since last year. The other thing I want you to know is that the wait lists tend to evaporate by August, so that you'll be told in March that there's a waiting list of 100 kids, and that sounds really horrible, but once kids move out and other kids go to private schools and other kids go to gifted programs, the wait lists generally, I'm not saying it's an acceptable situation. I think the wait lists are horrible and aggravating, but I just want you to know that for a lot of parents, if you just hang in there until August, the seat in your favorite school probably will end up. It used to be that parents just registered their children at their neighborhood school, but now there's a two-step process, which I think has caused a lot of confusion and even anger among parents. Now you apply to schools between January and March 2nd. So you go to your neighborhood school, you don't bring your child with you, you hand in all your paperwork, your Con Ed bill and your lease, and you show who you are and your child's birth certificate. And then they tell you whether your child's been accepted in the middle of March. This sounds kind of ridiculous. You're going to your zoned neighborhood school. Some schools will let you do both at once. Some schools require you to do the two-step process. The only benefit I can see to it is that you can, meanwhile, apply to 10 other schools if you want. And I'll tell you about some of those other, some of the other options. But you can apply to your own zoned neighborhood school, and you can also apply to somebody else's zoned neighborhood school. Some of the schools do have space. This is the weird thing about New York City. There's really bad overcrowding in other neighborhoods, and in some neighborhoods and in other neighborhoods there's plenty of room. Weirdly, the Lower East Side of Manhattan and East Harlem have had extra space for about 100 years. They built a whole bunch of schools, one every block, before they built the subways. And then when they built the subways 100 years ago, all these neighborhoods emptied out and the school buildings are still there. So there's pockets of emptiness and pockets of overcrowding. What we did this week, Pam and Meredith and Jackie and I, is we made a list of good schools that might have room. I can't guarantee they'll have room, when your kids, 2 years from now when your kids are bigger, or even this month. But these are schools which in the past have had a little room for out-of-district kids or out-of-zone kids. And those you'll see on our homepage, which I guess we don't have up because we're live streaming and we don't want to watch ourselves on television while we're live streaming. So I'm going to tell you about the other options as well. Besides your zoned neighborhood school, we have, and I'm going to post these notes on the website tomorrow or the next day so that if you're not taking notes or you can't remember it for 2 years, it'll be there. What we call unzoned schools, other people call schools of choice. There's some schools that don't have an attendance zone around them, but are open to children from across the whole district or even across the city. These schools don't require an exam. Some of them are first come, first serve. Some of them are lottery. Some of them were set up as alternatives to traditional neighborhood schools, with parents who really wanted their kids to have a progressive approach to education. They wanted to have more learn by doing. They wanted a more informal atmosphere where the kids might call the teachers by their first names, where there was plenty of time to play with blocks and to splash around in the sand table, where they wouldn't have textbooks, that they would have fun-to-read picture books. This is what we call progressive schools. And a lot of the unzoned schools are progressive schools. You'll see some of them. Ella Baker on the Upper East Side accepts kids from all 5 boroughs. Central Park East is sort of the granddaddy of the alternative unzoned schools. It accepts kids from all 5 boroughs. A lot of Bronx parents have chosen it. It's in East Harlem. Bronx New School, Brooklyn New School, and the progressive schools on the Lower East Side, which include the neighborhood school. For these unzoned schools, the deadline for applying is the same as the deadline for your zoned neighborhood school. And this year, that's March 2nd. There's another option for parents that I think is kind of exciting in New York. This is called the dual language programs. In these, half the kids have one native language and half the kids have another. Spanish is the most popular. So half the kids speak English at home and half the kids speak Spanish at home. And the language of instruction alternates either day by day or week by week. A roller coaster is what Robin is, our dual language expert. You can ask her questions afterwards. On the Upper West Side, PS 75 and PS 87 have popular programs. PS 84, both on the Upper West Side, and there's also a PS 84 in Williamsburg and Brooklyn that has a dual language in Spanish and English. We also have dual language in Chinese and English at PS 20 on the Lower East Side. Parents from Brooklyn sometimes come into that one. And I think it's a very exciting, when my child was little, I remember going into a kindergarten class and seeing them reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and I thought, well, he's already read it in English, but I realized he hadn't read it in Spanish. And this is a way to mix kids of different ethnicities and to make them fluent in both languages and also to make them literate in both languages by the end of 5th grade, which I think is kind of exciting. Robin Aronow is sitting here in the front row, and she'll be one of the people you can talk to afterwards about it. Is DJ Shepard here? She left, okay. DJ Shepard is the district family advocate in District 3. She's very responsive on the phone and by email if that's somebody you'd like to talk to as well. Magnet programs. Magnet programs, Lainey is here. She's here someplace. Lainey Lieber is the she's the person to talk to about magnet programs. Magnet programs are schools that receive federal money for the purpose of racial integration. The hope is that white kids would go to a mostly non-white school, or non-white kids would go to a mostly white school in order to integrate them more. And what the magnet schools have, and they change from year to year, but we've been to a number of the magnet schools here. My colleague Marion Cross, sitting in the back row, just went to PS 145 on the Upper West Side and really loved it. These are schools that get a huge federal grant to either buy a lot of technology or to set up a museum program or a music program, and a lot of money also for teacher training. That's another option if you don't like your neighborhood school, if you want to look beyond that. It's only by district. Robin is telling me that it's only within your district. However, if they have room, they will take kids from out of district, and sometimes they have room. The priority goes, the zone is the little area around your school, and then the district is the bigger area around your school that might include 40 schools. Charter schools, we also have somebody here to represent the charter schools. Sonia's sitting in the front row. Charter schools are public schools. They're tuition free. but they're not run by the Department of Education. And they have more flexibility in hiring. Most of them don't have unionized teachers. Their admission is by lottery. And each school sets its own deadline for charter schools, but all have to be due by April 1st. The charter schools were mostly in low-income neighborhoods where parents were really fed up with their other options. Now there are a few in middle-class neighborhoods as well. Honestly, the charter schools are a mixed bag. Some of them are great, and some of them are really not ready for prime time. It used to be that they had to find their own space, which limited the number of schools, because finding space in New York, as you know, is very expensive. But under Mayor Bloomberg, he's really tried to expand the number of charter schools and has started giving them space in ordinary zoned public schools, which has caused a fair amount of friction and resentment over the shared space. But the charter schools do represent an option for parents who are unhappy with their zoned neighborhood school. They're not all created equal, the charter schools. They fall into two big categories. One is what we call the mom and pops, and the other is what we call the networks. The mom and pops are a group in a neighborhood gets together and decides they want to have a school. It can be any theme, anything they want. There's some very interesting ones, like the Hellenic Charter in Park Slope is a school that teaches Greek. It's a dual language Greek program. It used to be a Greek Orthodox church. They couldn't keep it going as a church school, so they got rid of the religion and kept the language. So that's like a mom and pop. Then there are the networks, which are, you've probably heard of Eva Moskowitz's Harlem Success Network, or Achievement First, where somebody gets an idea for a school, and instead of just making one, they make 20. And they all have the same philosophy, the same uniform, the same policies. There's the mom and pop versus the networks. Then there's also the traditional versus the progressive. So some of the charter schools are progressive. Remember I was talking about Central Park East, where you call teachers by first name and you don't have any textbooks and you have the rug on the floor and the sandbox. And some of those, like the Renaissance Charter School in Jackson Heights in Queens or Community Roots in Brooklyn, are very much on the progressive side of things. Whereas other schools within the charter network, or the charter system, are very traditional. So they have lots of rules. They have rules about when you can go to the bathroom and rules about when you can raise your hand. And they have uniforms, and teachers are given very precise instructions about how and what to teach. And these are, you're sighing as I say that, but it's true, yeah. But we have a charter school expert here that you can talk to afterwards about specific questions that you might have about charter schools. Gifted programs. Every time we want to have a story we want people to read a story on our website, we just put gifted in the headline. You'll find sometimes it has nothing to do with gifted education, it's just some boring school board election that we wanted people to read about. But, there's I'm sorry to tell you the deadline for applying for gifted schools is already gone. You have to figure it out way ahead of time for those of you who are parents of 3-year-olds. I personally am a little skeptical about gifted programs, possibly because my child at the age of 4 was still throwing blocks. And I was convinced he was a genius, but I wasn't really convinced that the tester would appreciate having a block. He kicked kids in the shin, too, was the other thing he did at that age. And I thought the combination of throwing blocks and kicking the tester in the shin was probably not going to get him into the program. So other people have, maybe parents of girls, may have a different experience with this testing stuff. Robin is also, and Judy are experts on gifted education here. I'm trying to be funny. I'm not trying to. I don't think that gifted programs are. Oh, Jackie's also an expert on gifted programs, and it's her kids were very happy at the Talented and Gifted program in East Harlem. So she's another person you can talk to. I think that gifted programs are not, strictly speaking, necessary for the early grades, say K to 3, 4. A lot of what you need to learn in elementary school is social rather than cognitive. And the kids who really are, teaching themselves algebra at the age of 3 are, probably going to do okay academically. When I talk to parents on the phone whose children really are off the charts intellectually, what they desperately want is, I can always tell I've got a real one on the line when they desperately want their kids to be invited to birthday parties. And it's for a lot of kids, the social part of elementary school is as important as the academic side. What you want when you're looking, if you have a child, any child, but particularly a very academically precocious child, what you want is a teacher who can challenge different abilities in one class. So as you go through as you go on the tour, if you see one child is reading a really easy book like Frog and Toad, and the other child is reading Charlotte's Web in the same classroom, that's a good sign that the teacher is able to challenge the strong kids while helping the kids who are a little bit behind. As you look at the writing, if you see all the essays are exactly the same, 4 paragraphs about Christopher Columbus, bad idea. But if you see some kids are writing 3 sentences and some kids are writing 3 pages, that means the school is able to, the jargon in the schools is called differentiate instruction. That's what they're finding out, that they're able to reach different kids. This doesn't work forever. The older the kids get, the harder it is to meet a range of different abilities in the same classroom. I think by middle school, you probably do need to separate kids out. But I think gifted programs definitely make sense if your neighborhood school is really not very good. A gifted program is a really good option to get your child out of a terrible neighborhood school. Special education is the last thing I'm going to talk about. We're lucky to have Randy Levine of Advocates for Children here to answer your questions about special education. But just let me give you a quick outline and tip. I advise everybody to look at the special education services in a school, whether or not you think your child's going to need them. That's because it'll give you a clue about how the school will treat your child if he ever hits a bump. If he has trouble learning to read, or if there's a family crisis and he needs counseling. You want, whatever your child's abilities, you want a school that includes the special needs kids in the regular activities of the school and not one that segregates them in the basement. There's 17,000 kindergartners are getting special ed services this year. There's everything from speech therapy to counseling. If your child is one of them, remember that you're entitled to apply to schools just like everyone else, and you'll find out what school he's assigned to just like everyone else. In the past, the Department of Ed would send special ed kids away from their neighborhood schools. Now they're saying every school should serve every child. This is one of those ideas that's better in theory than in practice. And Randy can tell you about the complications if your child has an individual education plan and needs special services. But in general, most services should be available at your child's neighborhood school. So, and the Department of Ed is holding workshops on special education at the end of the month if you're kindergartners. So I'm going to wrap it up there and turn it over to Pamela Wheaton, who's the one person who's been with the site for the full 10 years now. She gets a 10-year badge. You get a pocket watch, I think, yeah.
Oh, okay.
She's going to give you a tour of the site.
Very quick tour. I thought there were a few seats. If people are still standing in the back, there are a couple seats up front in the second row. There's one in the third row. So anybody who's tired of standing, I see a few seats around. What's that? Oh, okay. How many of you are regular users of Insideschools.org? Not so many of you. Okay. And we've been around 10 years now. We said that 2002 we launched, and we redesigned our site several times. Any free web designers out there, contact us later. But we still find that parents don't always find it so easy to navigate each time we come up with new challenges. So here's a little one-question quiz. How many of you know from using the site that we send out something called an email alert or a newsletter every few weeks? So there's about maybe a half dozen of you. Okay. That's not good. Okay. So I'll start right there. We'll start right there with a really quick Inside Schools 101. How can we help you? Find the school that Clara and Jackie were talking about, since we're not always going to be there to help you through the process. So right under where it's live streaming and where there's usually a video or a slideshow, there's something that says subscribe to newsletter. All you have to do is fill in your email address and hit the button sign up. That doesn't mean you're going to be on a huge list and you're going to get emails from us every day. It means once every few weeks we're going to send out an email that you can unsubscribe to. It's very brief, and we're going to give you the highlights of what's going on. For example, I just made a note that the DOE is going to be having special education workshops for incoming kindergartners. We'll put on our calendar, and I'll put it in the next alert. You'll get the dates of those. I will highlight the fact that we've just posted a list of schools in Manhattan that may have space, schools in Staten Island that may have space, and so forth. So we'll just give you, it's a little one-pager you can click on if you want to see something else. So I encourage you all to subscribe to our newsletter. All you do is hit sign up, and in your inbox at some point you'll get something saying you're now subscribed. Thank you for joining us. One of the things that we at Inside Schools from the very beginning, we saw ourselves as a park bench, kind of, now the internet was not so big in 2002. People didn't talk to each other as much on the internet. Now we really want to talk to each other. So it's not just us telling you about how to apply to kindergarten, but it's you saying, oh, I just toured school XYZ on the Upper West Side. This is what was happening, and posting about that. One of the places on our site, we have several places where you can join in conversation. Sorry for giving you my back. Joining conversations with one another, and one of the places is our forum, the Elementary School Forum. So if you click on Elementary School Forum, you'll come to the posts, and the one I really love is thinking about moving to New York City from New Jersey, scared. Okay, that one has 3,425 hits. Many people in New Jersey, now that we have the Giants won the Super Bowl, maybe everybody wants to move to New York City, but I'm not going to click on that. But if you click on that, you will read what other New Yorkers have to say to this person from New Jersey who may or may not move here, after she reads all the replies, or he. Back to the home page. So that's the forum, and I encourage you all to utilize that. Right below, well, there's a very important donate button, but Andrew already gave his spiel, and yes, we do welcome donations. Very easy to donate. That's it. Underneath that, you'll see the events. So what's going on in New York City Public Schools? Well, today was Charter School Advocacy Day. Everybody went to Albany, citywide council, and there are parent councils. Used to be called school boards for those of you who grew up in New York City. Now they're no longer school boards. There's something called community education councils, and one is on English language learners. Hey, Inside Schools presents applying to elementary school. You're all here, and so forth. And tomorrow night, there's for high school parents, there's something on credit recovery in high schools, a new way to graduate. Another place to come. That was a joke. Maybe. Recent comments are all our school comments. As they come in, we feed. I hope there's some good ones up here. Oops, I was hoping this school is horrible was gone, but it isn't. It's still there. We do weed them out, the really bad ones, but and we have a comments policy that's very brief, but we really would like people to be civil. Then here's the news and views section where it's our blog. We have regular posting. We try to post something every day. We have for kindergarten parents this week, and schools that we think, as Clara referred to, might still have work. Elementary dad is here in the front row. He writes. He always makes me laugh and cry sometimes. But he talks about, gee, am I supposed to be helping my first grader with homework? I mean, if there's a spelling error, so there's an interesting discussion going on about that. So that's our blog. Those are sort of the main sections on our homepage, and where you'll be going if you as those of you who are parents, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, your first stop might be to the elementary school page, where you see the most recent elementary school reviews. We've been targeting some schools that people, Ella Baker, which is a open citywide admissions, 261 in District 15 in Brooklyn, frequently has space from outside the zone. 241 is a school we haven't been to for a while, and there have been a lot of changes there. So that's where you'll see the most recent schools we've visited. You can see the videos we have and the forum, and our most popular section, search for a school. So this is where you can, if you know what school you're zoned for, and if you don't, call 311. They probably know the right answer, but they might not know the right answer because there's been rezoning in the city, so in several districts. So what you might want to do is you can also check the Department of Education's website, schools.nyc.gov, and if you type in your address, they may be able to tell you. It may give you your correct zone school, but they may not. So because their zoning has changed. So you probably want to call your neighborhood school, and the school secretaries are really sometimes the best people who know what the actual zone is. But say you live on the Upper West Side, or you live on the Upper West Side, and you want to find a dual language school. So you can click on dual language and then search, and then you select the borough. You live on the Upper West Side. You click Manhattan. You could search for all of Manhattan too. But let's say you live in District 3, and you search. So you can search, then you just hit go. So you're looking for Manhattan, dual language, District 3. And there they are. Voila. You can also, we have little icons. This one says the school has a gifted and talented program. This one says dual language. And this is the zone map. So we do have zone maps for every school in the city. Some we've taken down because, as I said, zones are subject to change, and that's one of the jobs of the community education councils. They give the okay on whether a school zone will change. But we have cautionary note. Do not say, oh, Inside Schools says, I'm in this zone. Call the school. Call 311. Double check. Don't count on any map being 100% accurate. But so you can search for gifted and talented. You can search for schools that we think are noteworthy, which means we visited and we feel like not necessarily the school that has the best test scores or the most popular or the most comments, but the ones that we think really suit their public, that meet the needs of their school population and are doing something really well. So let's say you want a dual language school, and you also like the idea that it being noteworthy and gifted and talented. So there we go to 163. It meets all those needs. And this is where you'll find our school review. Someone has visited the school, and I'm not sure who it was in this case, Leidy, and she took these wonderful photos. We have a slideshow. You see the snapshot of the school is where it's located, the map in Manhattan, the phone number. The school has its own website probably. The principal's name, the neighborhood. Well, you can all see this, but we give you a snapshot of each school right there. We tell you what we think is special about the school, the enrollment, the attendance. Now, 93.9% is slightly higher. As you can see, the daily average attendance for elementary school is 93.3%. And it goes down as kids get older. Not great. And this is the reading scores, how they do, what percentage of the kids either scored at or above level on their reading exams. That's grades 3. There are standardized state tests in grades 3 through 8. So this is the percentage of the kids who are at or above grade level. We tell you what percentage of the kids in the school are still learning to speak English and what get special ed services. In this particular school, we have a review, and at the bottom we give you a little bit more on special ed at the school and how you get into this school. Or maybe we tell you about your after-school program too. And in this particular school, it's got a great dance program, and we have an extra another video, and this is about the dance program at the school. Not all schools we have an extra video, but sometimes we do. Now, if this isn't enough information for you, oh, let me point out one more thing. So we have elementary school. When you're ready for middle school, we have similar things, high schools, and you can see under elementary schools how to apply, high schools transfer, and we have DOE contacts. That means Department of Education in our lingo. Who should you contact if you have a problem or you want to contact someone in the charter school office? We have all those names. Here's something about after-school programs, free enrichment programs. If you're looking for something after school for your child that doesn't cost any money, you might find something there. We also have, we encourage you, if you visit PS 163 or the school in your neighborhood or you attend there, send in a comment. This particular school has 32 comments, and you can just type in your comment, hit send, and generally we'll post them. We do monitor them. They all go up. Some have a flag. If you include a link in there, it might come down. It might think you've linked to something bad. There's certain words we don't allow. But that's another way to find out about the schools. You read the school comments. So if all this is not enough information for you and you want to see really more nitty-gritty, we have a link that says View More DOE Statistics. And we take you right to the school's statistics page, I think. No, maybe not. Yes, there they are. And I'm going to turn it over to Clara, who's better at math than I am.
We've been to about 300 schools in the past year. We've updated an awful lot of profiles, but there are hundreds of schools that we haven't been to recently. And for those, you might need to look at the Department of Ed information. I'm a little skeptical about some of this, but some of it I think is really terrific. My favorite, now we run into the problem that I can't talk and I think I can do it. My favorite is the Learning Environment Survey, which is the Department of Ed gives a survey to all parents, teachers, and children who are at least middle school age, and asks them, do you feel safe? Are you happy with the school? Do you like your principal? And this is not, it's not a scientific Gallup poll with a random sample, but it's pretty interesting, I think. In general, if it's red, I watch out. It means there's a lot of unhappy people at this school. If it's dark green, it means it's a lot of happy campers. And this one is in the middle here. Some of my favorite questions here are, the parents almost always say they're happy with a child's school. I don't know if they're suckers or, what, but or clueless, but I like to see whether the teachers say order and discipline are maintained. I think that's an important. See, the T is for teachers there. I like to see whether the teachers feel things are safe, whether the kids think they're safe. I like whether parents are welcome. You can see here, almost all the parents felt welcome in the school. You can see almost all the parents say the child is safe. They say the school is clean. They say discipline is enforced safely. Very little bullying. I'd rather there was no bullying, but 8% of parents say there's some bullying. The teachers are respectful. There's no racial bias to speak of. I would be pretty appalled if there was gang activity in an elementary school. But it's nice to know that parents say there isn't, right? That's, so I would take all of these numbers with a grain of salt, but I think they're really worth looking at. One of the things I care a lot about is whether the teachers are happy, and the principal has confidence in the expertise of the teachers is nice. High standards. Principal places the learning needs of the children ahead of other interests. You certainly want that to be the case, right? And there's also one here where the teachers can say whether or not they trust the principal. You certainly want. I trust the principal at her word. You certainly want that to be a high number as well. So those are, how are we doing on time, Jackie? Where's Jack? 5 more minutes. Hey, have you had enough of data? You want? I think maybe we've had enough of data, and it's time to go into Q&A. But there's you can also find all the schools. The progress report is the city's measure of how schools compare to other schools with similar demographics. The CEP is the Comprehensive Education Plan. That's the school's self-assessment of how it's doing. The Comprehensive Education Plan, and that is the school's self-assessment of what they're doing well, what they're working on, and what needs to be improved and what they're doing on it. And it will also usually tell you things like what dance programs they have and what. And I actually like this to see how well the principal writes, you know, if it's all jargon or if it's English. But the principals are encouraged to write in jargon by their superiors, so I don't hold it against them too much. So these are some of the other sources of data that you can find in addition to what we have on the Inside Schools website. So I'm going to turn it back to Jackie. Are we going to go to the question and answer? Okay. So do you want me to introduce the panel? Do I know who they are? All right. Rob and Arnhold, please come up on the stage. Sonia Hooks. Lainey Lieber. And Randy Levine. Now, if any of you have questions, if you put them on a 3x5 card and wave your hand, somebody will come and get it. And then at 8 o'clock, we're going to break up and have... I'm sorry, I haven't got a watch on. What time is it? All right. Do you want to introduce them? Or do you want me to? All right. Robin Arnhold has been helping parents find schools for a number of years. She's a clinical psychologist, lives on the Upper West Side. Her own children went to public school, and a mixture of public and private schools, and have done very well indeed, I think. So,
one's teaching now, right? One is actually teaching in the South Bronx.
Yeah. Robin we asked her because she's particularly knowledgeable about gifted and talented programs and also dual language. Sonia is most of the people who know a lot about charter schools are in Albany lobbying today, but we were able to grab Sonia and ask her to stick around and help us out here tonight. Lainey is the magnet coordinator for the Upper West Side and also Queens. So she's good about magnet schools. And Randy, thank you for coming, is from Advocates for Children and is an expert on special education services. Should I introduce our people too, or no? All right. Is it possible to be zoned for more than one school? I guess I'll answer that. Yes, but I can only think of one place. The district we're in right here, you can choose between 41 and 3. Are there any others? Can anybody think
District
of
it?
District 1 is open.
In District 1, there are no zone schools. You choose from among any of the schools in District 1. Is there a list of overcrowded schools? It changes from year to year. The Department of Ed puts a utilization report on the website which shows which ones are overcrowded. You don't really want a list of overcrowded schools. You want to know. Oh, and the deadline for the gifted and talented. Robin, why don't you handle the gifted? Give a little spiel about gifted and talented and tell us about the deadline.
Okay. This year, the deadline was November, so for those of you who are starting the process next year, you want to be on the lookout for gifted and talented information. It usually starts in October. The Department of Ed has gotten very good about having open houses and information sessions in every one of the boroughs. They will go over the entire process for you. If you're interested now, if you go to the Department of Ed website, schools.nyc.gov/academics with an S, /gifted and talented spelled out. I don't know my children's name, but I know every website on the Department of Ed. Anyway, there are handbooks there now by a child's age, but if you look at any of those handbooks, it really answers any question you would ever want to know about gifted and talented. So the process does start in the fall. In December, you find out where your child is going to be tested. Testing takes place mostly in January on weekends, but also in February. Test results are not due back this year until April, about the second week in April. We're expecting that families will then have about a week to a week and a half to prioritize the schools that are available to them. The testing that's being used right now, we expect that this might be the last year for it, so I'm not going to go into that. Those of you who already took it know all about it, but that may be changing, so that's one of the things we want to know about. But for this year at least, scores will be back. In April, parents will have about a week and a half to prioritize their schools, and we're expecting placements the week of May 21st, and families will need to register by the first week in June.
I think this is a related question. When do you find out the scores for the GNT testing? Did you just answer that?
I did.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we're expecting it about the middle of April. The way that it works right now is that if your child scores between the 90th and the 96th percentile, they are entitled to a district gifted and talented program. If they score 97 percentile or above, you'll have the opportunity to rank both the citywide programs, Anderson, Ness, TAG, STEM, and Brooklyn School of Inquiry. Though in actuality, the most popular schools will close out at the 99th percentile.
Lainey, I want to ask you a question about magnet schools, and let me be a little provocative here, okay? You look at the magnet school brochures, and it says, lots of technology and a beautiful library and, huge amounts of staff development for the teachers. And then you look at the test scores, and it's like 20% of the kids reading at grade level. What would make me choose a school with really weak test scores?
Great question. Can you hear me? So magnet schools, what they are specialized schools that have a specialized theme that we weave into the curriculum. So once we get funding for a district to get a magnet program, you're usually looking at about 5 or 8 schools for a district. Those schools that are part of the magnet program then rewrite their curriculum, and there's an insurgence of time and energy. Part of the reason we weren't part of this conversation last year and the year before, even though we had the funding at that point, is because we were working very hard on reinventing these schools. And once they become a magnet school, they become very highly sought after. One of our schools out of our 8 is actually PS 87, which is noted to be one of the best schools in New York City. And a lot of people say, well, why is that a magnet school? They were actually a magnet school 20 years ago when it wasn't a highly sought after program. So once you become a magnet school and you rewrite your curriculum and you take the teachers that are there that want to work hard and redesign the school and really create a rigorous 21st century curriculum, all the things that you were looking up when we saw what to look for in an elementary school in terms of project-based and differentiated instruction and hands-on work, those are all the things that we're doing. We're taking the most progressive techniques, things that work, and when we're recreating our schools, which we've now recreated, and I would challenge you to go see what's happening here. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, these schools. And as I was saying about PS 87, to keep looking at Skip, who's a father there, but that was a school 20 years ago that nobody wanted to touch, became a magnet school, and now people are dying to get in. So here we're offering this now with yes, the pretty brochures, but it really, I wouldn't put something in print that I didn't believe, and I wouldn't be here speaking to you all if I didn't believe that these schools are doing great things. And in 5 years, I don't think you'll be able to get in, really.
Let me point out that one of the things we do at Inside Schools is we try to find what in the financial world would be value stocks. You know, we're trying to find schools that are on the way up that haven't been discovered yet. And we're really excited when somebody calls us and says, Laura did the other day and said 84 in Williamsburg is just great. It has a dual language program. She just loves it. Marion likes 145 on the Upper West Side, which has a magnet program. In terms of the test scores, children are tested for the first time in 3rd grade. When a new principal comes in, or a new program like a magnet program comes in, you can feel the excitement within a couple of weeks. But the kids who are coming in kindergarten won't be tested until 3rd grade. They won't be tested for another 4 years. So that a lot of the good instruction that is going on now won't be reflected in the test scores for another 3 years. So that's one of the reasons that we're a little bit more cautious about test scores than others might be. Here's a question about dual language. Regarding dual language, is it necessary or advisable that both parents speak both languages? What is the impact if your child is one of the few white kids in the school?
Okay. Generally, they're looking for hopefully one parent speaking the second language. If both parents are speaking it, that's great. The schools do not require, at least the ones that I'm familiar with, do not require either parent to speak the other language, but they do want to know that there's a commitment on the part of those parents, because the dual language programs are being considered to be at the same level as the gifted and talented programs. Kids are expected to master not only the statewide curriculum like everyone else, but be able to master that in both English and a second language. So very often principals or someone else in the school will meet with the parents to make sure that they understand that commitment. And it is certainly helpful to have somebody in your family, I'd like to say, whether it's your child's nanny, a grandparent, the doorman, someone who may be able to help out with homework in that program. Can I answer both parts?
Randy, I have a question for you about special ed. Can you tour a year early? Can the child with an IEP enroll in a dual language program? And how do you make sure school can fulfill the IEP? That's a lot of questions. Yeah.
As far as touring, other than the specialized District 75 schools that are specifically for children with severe needs, there are no tours that are specific to students with special needs. Families who have students with special needs are encouraged to go on the tours that community schools offer to all students, and to make sure to ask when they go on those tours to see the various special education services and classes that are available within those community schools. Community schools each have their own process in terms of setting up open houses or tours, and if they have an open house, they're not going to look at your child's date of birth. You can go in and be part of that open house and start looking at it. You should know, though, that the special education services that a school has 1 year may not be the same special education services that they have the following year. So feel free to tour early, but take it with a grain of salt. In terms of the dual language programs, students with disabilities are eligible to participate in any of the special programs that are offered in New York City. Charter schools, gifted and talented programs, dual language programs. They're eligible for any programs that they otherwise get into. And then in terms of implementation of the IEP, we have some big changes this year. And for those of you who aren't going to be looking for the next couple of years, I'm not sure that it'll be the same system then. But right now, the Department of Education is implementing a special education reform to try to include more students with disabilities in their local zone school. And so for the first time, the Department of Education is asking all parents of students with disabilities to participate in the regular kindergarten admissions process, just as they would if their student did not have a disability. At the same time, there's going to be a separate process for developing the student's individualized education program for kindergarten, the plan that says what type of class and services the student should have. The school that admits the student is going to be expected to implement the services that are on the child's IEP. And so as your child gets their IEP and gets their kindergarten placement, it'll be really important to talk to the school to make sure that the school has the ability to implement the IEP that's been created.
I want to just summarize that in 5 words that my colleague and friend Mellon said. You have to be fierce as a parent. You have to be really on top of it. And for those of you who want to stay around and ask more individual questions, Randy and Mellon will be available afterwards. Charter schools seem to have a high level of independence. Are there some minimum standards they must all meet? Sonia?
No, there isn't really. They are, what a charter is they're given 5 years to demonstrate academic excellence. And in that 5-year charter, if they are unable to do it, their charter can be revoked. So it's a contract between the board of directors or trustees and their authorizer. In the state of New York, there's 3 authorizers: New York City Department of Education, SUNY, the Charter School Institute, and New York State Education Department. So one of those 3 authorizers will give a charter to an entity, and within that charter, it details exactly what they say they're going to do in their 5-year period. If they meet those standards that they set out for themselves, then they will be given another 5 years. If they don't, then their charter can be taken away.
And I have another question. If you don't want to answer it, I'll give it to Skip. Is which charter schools are the best in Spanish Harlem?
Yeah.
Skip, do you have an opinion? No?
I can't think of the ones off the top of my head.
Okay. On our website, we say Manhattan schools that may have room. We have some of the charters that we like better. I think Harlem Success, people seem to like in Harlem.
I think that what is the best has to be defined by each individual parent. So I wouldn't be the best person to answer that. Generally, I could give you my answer about my favorite schools as a parent in New York City, but as a person who's in charter school and an advocate for parents who should go out and look at each individual school, charter, traditional district, all of the other options that are being talked about, and really explore to see what each individual school is offering to find out if it's a match for what your family's values and are.
So Sonia, as a parent, which is your favorite?
It depends on the day. Depends on the day.
Are your children in?
I only have one that's school age.
And he's where?
Too small. He's also in a charter school in Brooklyn. I live in District 16.
You won't tell us which one.
He goes to Excellence Boys.
Oh, Excellence Boys. Okay. And Robin, is the exam for gifted and talented free?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain, Sonia? Can you explain the ranking? Based on the ranking, is the lottery divided by its own ranking category or total applicants? Does that make sense?
Well, I can tell you about the lottery. So the way that charter schools operate, admissions is by lottery. State law requires that the lottery, you have to give district preference. So whichever community school district you live in is a preference. Schools can also opt to give preference to students at risk, and they can determine what at risk is, either failing schools or free and reduced lunch. They can decide what at risk is, and they can give priority in their lotteries for that, and then they would have to give it to the community school district. Within the community school district, there often is lottery preference for siblings. First, if you have a brother or sister who already attends the school, there is a lottery preference that can be given to that. But each individual charter school has their own rankings, so you have to look at each school, but you should know that the overarching one is by your district.
Robin, can you rank schools by preference when applying for kindergarten?
For gifted and talented, or?
For everything.
The right now, the only process that I'm aware of where you do it by ranking is gifted and talented. And then you have the ability, based on what your child scores and what district you live in, to rank the schools in the order in which you would like. When it comes to the zone schools, either your own zone school or somebody else's zone school that you want to apply to, you're going to go to each of those schools and fill out an application at each of those schools. And that's true for the magnet schools, too?
No, the magnet school has an application online at our website, d3mag.net, and it would be a ranking.
Yeah.
You rank which schools.
So you could potentially be offered several seats. You could be offered a magnet seat, your neighborhood school, and a charter school, and you could be offered 4 or 5 seats.
Right.
Yeah.
If I may, I mean, also as a parent, I think the best way to see what school is the right fit for you, yes, take a tour, but go to drop-off or pick-up time and see who's there, talk to the parents, see how they feel, what they feel, and I think you really get a great insight from that. And then in addition, I apply everywhere. Apply to whatever seems good, hedge your bets, and then see what you get back. I mean, you can apply to a magnet school, you can apply to a charter school, you can apply to a couple of different district schools, and you'll see where you get in. And then in April, you make decisions. May, June, you make some decisions.
Here's some questions for the Inside Schools website. Should I answer them, or Pam? Or what is the criteria on Inside Schools for the noteworthy icon? That's mine. We just made it up. They're just schools we like. It's sort of like I would send my child there. It's for high schools, we have a little more rigor. You know, they have to have a certain graduation rate and they have to have a certain attendance rate. Pam's raising her eyebrows. But then there's schools that we just like. So, yeah. Jackie says there's schools that serve the community well. Yeah, it's basically our opinion. How truly relevant are test scores for elementary schools? I noticed some noteworthy upper-wide elementary schools that have mediocre test scores. This is a really complicated question, but test scores are often a reflection of socioeconomic status rather than the quality of instruction. The other thing we have on our website is we'll show you how many English language learners there are and how many kids with special education needs. And it's kind of natural that the English language learners are not going to read as well at English in 3rd grade as the kids that have been speaking English since they were first born. And special ed kids, some of them are very strong academically, and some of them are not. So a school with a lot of special ed kids may be doing a really good job with them. The other thing I mentioned was about a school that is on its way up, where the K1 and 2, which are not tested, are really doing great, and the upper grades are not there yet. There are, conversely, schools that are on their way down, you know, where they still have the 4th and 5th graders still have good test scores, but the kids coming along are not doing so well. It's one piece of data I use. It's not the only piece I use. Obviously, higher test scores is better than lower test scores. You want kids the tests are not that tricky or difficult or weird. You know, you want the kids to be able to do well on them. But what we're showing you here is what they're like how the tests are compared to the citywide average. So that this school, you know, is well above the citywide average in the test scores. I don't know. Do you want to add that to that, Robin, or anybody? Anybody want to add? No. All right.
Said it well.
Anybody want to answer about pre-K? There's no full-day pre-K in my zone school. How do schools with full-day pre-K decide if my child will get a spot? Anybody know that?
It's based on funding. There's an application process. As she said earlier, it's not you're not entitled to it because there's not enough funding for them to be in every school. So it sort of is a first come, first served lottery type of basis. And the demand for the school also determines whether it's going to be a full day or half day program, and that's sort of how it's done. It's reviewed yearly. There's a division within the Department of Education that looks at supply and demand for all of the programs, from how seats are spread out to recommend for zoning, to gifted and talented, to pre-K. It's all decided based on where the demand is.
And unlike the kindergarten application process where you go to each school that you're interested in and fill out a separate application, the universal pre-kindergarten application is a centralized application process where you rank your preferences. And so you can rank the half-day programs, you can rank the full-day programs, and then a computer system determines, based on a hierarchy of priorities, who gets into each class.
And that process is starting shortly. So if you go to the Department of Ed website now, there will be information about the pre-K process if your children are eligible for this September.
The weird thing about pre-kindergarten is that some neighborhoods are wildly oversubscribed and there's not a prayer of getting a seat. And there are other seats that go begging well into September and October. And I think the seats that go begging tend to be the half-day programs that go from 8 to 11 or from noon to 2. That's very hard for working parents to drop their kids off and then pick them up. And they tend to be in slightly out-of-the-way neighborhoods, away from the subways.
Can I just say one other thing about that? What's really interesting about the pre-K programs, too, is that most of them are really excellent, and that families will go to schools that they may decide not to keep their children in for kindergarten. But they are definitely, every single pre-K program out there is definitely worth taking a look at, and hopefully once you're in the school, you'll decide that that's a good place to stay going forward. I'm sorry, I just don't want to confuse that. Yeah. You do have to reapply for kindergarten. So it is based on the regular priorities for that. But I'm saying if it's in your district and, and happens to be your zone school, maybe you'll decide to stay there.
Regarding test scores, is it possible to see examples of the tests those scores came from in order to form your old opinion? Yes, they're on. The tests are on the state Department of Education website. They're delivered by they're put together by the state, and you can find them. And I actually think the tests are pretty good, but there's various reasons why kids might not do well on them, even in very good school. How many Mandarin? Anybody want to add to that about the tests? No. How many Mandarin dual language programs are there in Manhattan, other boroughs? Any possibility of one being introduced in District 3?
Right now, the 2 Mandarin programs that are in Manhattan are in District 1. Clara mentioned one of them at PS 20. The other is at PS 184, the Shengwang School. The way that dual language program, there is not one in District 3. I think it's ripe for a Mandarin English program in District 3. The way that one gets one started is by coming to the Community Education Council. In fact, they have monthly meetings on multilingual committee, and I believe that there's actually one this Thursday. And if there's enough interest, they will try to figure out how to start a program. They're actually hoping to start a Russian-English dual language program in District 3. And it seems to me there might be a greater need or a desire for a Mandarin English program.
I also want to add in on that. In District 25 in Queens, I know we had one Queens hand up. I didn't know if that was District 25 or not. But one of the magnet schools there, PS 201, the Discovery School for Inquiry and Research, is an international baccalaureate school, and they have a Mandarin English program there. And in terms of District 3, when we were creating this magnet application to receive funding from the federal government, it was recommended that parents on the Upper West Side wanted French. So we have Young Diplomats Academy, which is also an international baccalaureate candidate, but they do have a French program where all students receive French instruction, five hours a week, I believe.
Please explain the prioritization process. I think that means for the gifted programs, it is based on your test score. For all of the other programs, it's more or less a random assignment by the computer, and it's no. Sorry.
So for zone schools, the way it goes is if you have an older child who will still be in the school at the time that your younger child is starting, so you're zoned for the school and there's a sibling there. The next priority is for anyone who is zoned for the school that does not have a sibling. After that, there will be some siblings in the school who are not zoned for it but live in that district. Then siblings in the school that are not zoned for it live out of the district. then everyone else who's in the district, and then everyone else out of the district.
I stand corrected.
And for charter schools, the prioritization is basically the same, with the district as a preference, and if the school has opted to add an at-risk preference, that would be in front of it.
All right,
I would just
sorry.
The same is true for magnet schools. In addition, speaking with my New York City Department of Education hat on, which is who I work for, on the front page of the Department of Education's website, they actually came out with a kindergarten admissions guide as of last week. And in that, I think it's about a 72-page booklet, which we have printed out. There you go. They give the priority listings for each district and each school.
There's also a charter school. I wanted you to show the charter school directory also.
The directory is on the website, schools.nyc.gov/charters. This one is slightly outdated. The newer one will be up within a couple weeks, but this one is available online. I do have a couple copies tonight also if you're interested.
What is the website for magnet schools?
www.d3mag.net.
And is there a good magnet program in District 12?
We do not have magnet schools as of yet in District 12, so.
And can you explain the prioritization? That's a terrible word, isn't it? Prioritization for magnets.
To receive a magnet grant.
And I'm sorry, for the people who are applying. I mean, if I live in District 12, do I have a prayer of getting into a District 3 magnet program?
You couldn't apply through an application. So for magnet applicants, we can only take students within the district. If you're outside of the district, you can, like anybody else, just go to the school and register. So how we fill our seats is zone students get priority. After zone, and we just explained all the priorities for zone students, then seats are set aside for magnet students. After magnet students, if there's still seats left over, or maybe someone doesn't accept an offer that they were given and there's some empty seats, that would go to the wait list. So somebody that was out of district could be placed on a wait list for the school and be contacted in May to let them know if they have a seat or not.
Do you have any plans to have, do you have information about single-sex education in New York? I'm going to throw that to Sonia.
Yeah, there are a few charter schools that are single gender. My son attends one of them. Excellence also has a girls charter. Girls prep schools, I think, is what their network is called. They have girls prep. They also have they have been authorized for a charter for a boys prep that is not yet open, that will be opening, I think, next year, not this fall, but next fall. There are a couple of, those are in both of the schools that I just previously mentioned. It's what she called managed. I forget the word you
Network
use.
Or,
Network.
yeah.
Yeah. We use charter management organization is the word that we refer to it as. Those are big networks, but there are a couple of mom and pop. One in particular that I can think of, Imagine Me Leadership in Brooklyn, is a boys charter school. So there's a few of them, and there's a lot of positive studies out about single gender schools. So if you're interested in them, I would definitely recommend that you look at those schools closely.
Here's a question that carries me back to when I was the mother of a 4-year-old and is really heartfelt. But how worried do I need to be about picking the wrong school? Are they going to be stuck with it?
I'll start with that. Because I too have that. I have two younger ones in addition to my school age one, and so I have the same fears. I think it's challenging in New York City because there are 1 million options, it feels like, and so you fret over making the right decision, and once you make that decision, you fret if it was the right decision and if you missed out on another opportunity. The truth is that people in New York City move from school to school. Is it, you have to decide for your family's value system if that's something you want to do, or if you want to stick with the school that you start with, and figure out if it's something you're going to, as she said earlier, if it's something you want to deal with or something you can change, or just something that is completely unacceptable for your family. But there are ways out. There are always options. People, because the city is very migratory and people move from borough to borough, they leave the city. Spaces become available in upper grades that may not have been available in kindergarten or first grade. Even for G&T, there's seats that become available in upper grades. They're scarce, but they are available. So there are always options available, and you can test for gifted and talented in upper grades. You can go into other programs in upper grades. So you're not stuck. The short answer is no, you're not stuck.
You want to add, Judy?
I'm sort of taking issue with that because the Department of Enrollment definitely has a policy about transfers, except if you get mugged in the street right outside of school, the police know about it, or you have asthma attacks because you passed a perfume factory on your way, or you have to travel too far. Otherwise, you can't get out. You can get out at different levels, middle school and high school, and it gets increasingly difficult to get out of any of those levels. And while I really do appreciate all the choices you have all around the city, there is a lot of built-in roadblocks for parents to navigate when it comes to moving out of schools. You can change your district. You can move. You can pick up and take another apartment. I don't know how many people can do that to get into a good school. So, I think it's important.
I think
I would say, it's important to make a good choice. It's important when you get into your school to make it a good choice by your work at the school, by being an advocate, by being there. And I think that makes the school okay.
Well, I think that the intent of the question is to sort of allay the worry, the fear factor of knowing that you're not stuck. I think for every sort of scary story, there is a story that exists. And I work at the DOE. I'm a parent. I know that this is true. There are also stories where it was not a good fit, and a parent was able to find a school that was a good fit. And I hear those stories more often than the scary stories, and that is really where I think my answer is coming from. I've worked in various offices in the Department of Ed. I know lots of family stories. I worked in family engagement, so I'm speaking from a place of sort of knowledge and not just anecdotal, but facts. So,
how would you counsel a parent? How would you counsel a parent to make the desire to move to another school known, and who would be able to shepherd that parent through the process?
You would start with your school. If you're not able to move from there, then you can move to the district. There are district family advocates. There's a superintendent. There's network people who are able to help. Your borough enrollment office. Within the traditional district setting, there are so many different layers of support that are available. I couldn't even begin to name them all. But I would begin with the school, and then my next step would be working with someone in the district. There are people within the district who are set up to help you to move around your district. And the way that it's set up in the city is that most of your options happen within your district. And as you said, yes, you can move outside of your district, but there are options available outside as well.
I just want to comment that I agree with both ends. I think it's easier to move in the elementary school years than it is in the middle and high school years.
I think high school, it's very difficult to move. I've heard fewer problems in the elementary school. And there are the gifted and talented tests you can take in first grade, second grade. You can take it in other grades. The charter schools you can apply in upper grades too. It's Robin, can you talk about applying to Hunter?
Okay. Hunter College Elementary School is a separate process. It is a free public school, but it's under the city university system as opposed to under the Department of Education. Their application will become available over the summer. You can check their website, no www, just hces.hunter.cuny.edu. Their application is very simple. It's just identifying information. You send it into Hunter. Hunter then sends you back a list of approved testers. You have to use one of the testers on Hunter's list. They administer the Stanford Binet. It has to be the first administration of the Stanford Binet, so try to make sure your child doesn't have it that year. And then based on your child's score, you'll get back something that's called sum of scaled scores from this IQ test. If your child scores in the high 140s, is what the cutoff has been, there is then a second round evaluation on site at Hunter. They will choose 50 students, 25 boys, 25 girls, and will keep a wait list of 12 boys and 12 girls through third grade. The only time you can apply to Hunter at the present time is either kindergarten or 7th grade. They are based on the same birthday cutoff, and we haven't talked about that at all. But the birthday cutoff for the Department of Ed is December 31st, whereas for many private schools out there, in case any of you are thinking about that, the cutoff tends to be around September 1st. So if you have one of those late birthday kids and you think you're going to have a chance to apply to Hunter again, you know, will have lost your choice, your chance. So you want to start looking over the summer. The application is due, I believe, at the beginning of November.
What age can a child be tested for gifted and talented? You just said it.
For Hunter, your child can be either 3 or 4. Testing is completed before some kids turn 4 at the end of December. For the Department of Ed, so far children have had to be 4 years old, which is why testing has not started until January, and that has really held up getting back the test results. So I think that's one of the reasons that they're looking for a new test, to see whether they can maybe get the test results back a little bit sooner.
And can you take the test after kindergarten? Is that the only entry point?
For Hunter, the only entry point is kindergarten. For the Department of Ed, you can actually apply every year up until not the last year of that school. So for most of the district programs, they end in 5th grade, and you can apply up through 4th grade. The process changes a little bit in the 4th and 5th grade years. If it is a citywide, such as Anderson or TAG, you can apply up through 7th grade. NEST program, which is one of the citywides, goes through 12th grade, and you can apply up through 5th, then you can apply for middle school, and then you can apply for high school.
How are the gifted and talented?
Sorry, Clara. I just want to add to that, the thing to keep in mind with the gifted and talented schools, especially the citywide offerings, is the fact that if students are happy there and parents are happy there, they're not going to leave. So the spaces as you go up the grades are actually going to be smaller. So the best time to get in is kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and that's why the testings run the way it is.
And how are the gifted and talented tests administered? Is it a group or a class setting, one-on-one?
Again, we're not quite sure what the testing will be going forward from this year, but the way that it has been is that there will always be 2 tests administered. I believe that's a federal policy. And so this year, the 2 tests were the BSRA, the Bracken School Readiness Assessment, which was administered one-on-one for kindergarten, and the OLSAT, the Otis Learning School Ability Test, which was also administered one-on-one for kindergarten. Starting in 1st grade, the OLSAT was administered in small groups. The groups got larger as you went up through the grades.
And Randy, here's a question for you. What are the differences between different special ed programs? NEST, CTT, ICT, SATs, etc. Try not to use any jargon. Yeah.
There's a wide continuum of options available, all of which have fun acronyms. I think that the best thing to do is to read one of the guides that's available that describes those options. Advocates for Children has a Turning 5 guide for students with disabilities entering kindergarten. I have some hard copies with me. It's also available on our homepage, which is www.advocatesforchildren.org. The Department of Education also has a Turning 5 guide. If you Google NYC Department of Education, Special Education Kindergarten Enrollment, their website should come up that has the list of those options. Just very quickly, within community schools, the Department of Education has general education classes with supports and services available in those classes. Then it has integrated co-teaching classes, which are regular size but have 2 teachers, a special education teacher and a general education teacher. CTT is the old name for ICT, so now ICT and CTT are the same thing. And then community schools also have self-contained classes of 12 students. There are a couple of special programs out there, such as the ASD Nest programs and ASD Horizons program for students on the autism spectrum. There's information about those programs available in our guide, or if you Google ASD Nest, you can find a lot of information there too, or I'm happy to stay after and answer individual questions about those specific programs.
We also have a section, special education section of our site. It's embryonic, but we're working on it. Robin, somebody said, at what age would you recommend G&T if not for elementary? And Jackie pointed out that it's easier to get in kindergarten than in the upper grades, but or maybe you think they should enter in kindergarten. It was just I who said later.
I mean, ideally, kids would have more options of getting in grades that go on, because then you would have the opportunity for your child's teacher to make recommendations about it. And by the time we get to that point, as we pointed out, a lot of the seats are no longer available. So in some ways, it's unfortunate that it does start in the kindergarten years. There are throughout the city some middle schools that are designated as gifted and talented middle schools. And then when we get to the high schools, we're generally talking about the specialized high schools, but there are other high schools out there that may also consider themselves to be gifted and talented as well.
Is there anything parents should do at home to prepare their child for the gifted and talented exam?
You know, I think what most neurotic New York parents are doing anyway is very good preparation for the exams. I can tell you that this year for the gifted and talented programs through the Department of Education, both measures did not have any verbal components to it. The tests are administered to children verbally, but all children have to do is point to the correct answer. And so it is very much a test of visual, perceptual types of abilities. And one of the reasons they've done this, to the credit of the Department of Ed, is that there are so many languages spoken in New York City. And it is a disadvantage to have a test that a child has to respond to verbally if it's not administered in their home language. So this was an opportunity. They do offer the tests in 8 different languages. Those are on the Department of Ed website. But it's an opportunity to sort of, make the playing field a little bit better. So any kinds of activities that you can do that get your child to, number one, slow down, because in some ways these are tests more of paying attention than necessarily intellect, but to slow down, to look at pictures, and to be able to differentiate how things are similar and different. They had analogies on the tests. They had what doesn't belong on the tests, those types of things. So that's what I would recommend at this point. There are lots of books out there. There are companies that are selling practice books. In the Department of Ed handbook, there is a practice test for the LSAT. Again, I don't know if the LSAT will be used next year. But whatever is being used will probably be in that issue of the Department of Ed's handbook, and that's a good place to start.
I'm going to close with a sort of philosophical question. And then we'll break up and invite all of you to come and talk to the Insideschools. Jackie's going to explain it. Okay. If I can afford private school, why should I go to my zoned school? Do you want me to answer that? Anybody?
You can start.
Go ahead, Robin.
Yeah. Obviously, number one is finances. I don't know how many of you saw the article in the New York Times that, $40,000 is sort of where private schools are at these days. That's one child. You've got more than one child. We're talking about an awful lot of money. I think the other benefits, my kids, went through public schools. I have one who changed for high school to a private school, so I've had both experiences. I think I know the pros and cons of both. But I think that there's nothing like being in your community, if that's possible. And, a school, I know we've talked about lots of options, which are going to cause some of you to travel for those options. But I think there's something about being in a school that's more reflective of the community in which you live and the city in which you live, which is as valuable an experience to kids as maybe a private school education.
I can point out the benefits, I think, of the private schools is that they have smaller class size and they have better facilities, lots of mahogany and polished brass. What the public schools have is better paid teachers who are licensed as teachers, and as Robin says, a reflection of your community. I think there's some people are upset by the rampant materialism in our society, particularly in Manhattan, and there's plenty of that in public and private, but there's a lot fewer Prada bags in the public schools than there are in the private schools.
One of the other big differences has to do with testing, though. And most private schools do have standardized testing. It's used for internal purposes, just so a teacher knows whether they need to give more support to their class as a whole or an individual student. Testing in New York City, we now know, is rampant. It's high-stakes testing. It is what's going to show up on Inside Schools. It's going to affect the report card that the Department of Ed gives. It will reflect in some cases whether principals get bonuses or not. And so a lot of time and attention is spent on that testing, and that's a difference between them also.
It's a very personal decision. It's a very, family decision. I wouldn't, so you trust your instincts. You know what's right for your family. But there's an awful lot of good things going on in the public schools, and that's what we're here to tell you about.